invest in content from day one, and also, having great interactions with the community. I think it has been responsible for a lot of new users, a lot of new business opportunities for Escape.
Hi everyone, you're listening to Scaling DevTools, and we're joined today by Tristan and Antoine from Escape.tech. So this is a company that got started after Tristan got hacked, right?
Yeah, thank you for having us today, Jack. Exactly. So Escape is an API security company for developers. So we help developers secure their applications while they're building them during the CI/CD. And it all starts with a personal story, of course. So basically, when I was 19 years old, I knew that I wanted to create a company one day. So I went to the Bay Area and I started working for tech companies in San Francisco. And at some point, I was building chatbots. It was 2017. It was the trend. They were not at all as good as today. It was not ChatGPT or LLMs. It was very bad. And I was building chatbots and APIs for companies in the Bay Area. And at some point, I have one of my customers that calls me and says, Tristan, I don't get it. Like, I cannot access the platform anymore. Like the application that you built, it's just broken. So I said, hey, I'm going to take a look, I'm going to see what happened. And I logged into the database. It was a MongoDB database, again, 2017 trends. And the database was empty. There was nothing in it. There was just one single message, which was, do not worry, your data is safe. In order to get it back, please pay 10 Bitcoin to this address. And there was like a Bitcoin address on the bottom of the message. So I got hacked. The application was breached, and they stole all the data. And it was a very professional message with explanation on how to buy Bitcoin and how to send it. So very very professional thing. Obviously, I had a backup, so it was not that tough for me at this time, but it made me realize how fragile the application that we create as developers are. And I wondered, like, what if I build other applications one day, I wake up and there is nothing, everything is gone, the data is empty. What can help me ensure that what I'm building as a developer is secure and I'm not at risk of being stolen? And there were no tools in 2017 to help with that. Snyk was just at the beginning, and the vulnerability was not a vulnerability in an open source component like Snyk was doing. So it was quite different. And I really, this stayed on my mind. So finding a solution for this problem. And 2.5 years after that, I met with Antoine. And Antoine was on the penetration testing side of the force. He was an expert in cybersecurity. We met at UC Berkeley. We were students there together. He was out of he worked as a penetration tester, and then he worked at Apple, and he was out for doing MBA at Berkeley. And when we met, we were like, hey, you want to create a company? You are expert in cybersecurity. I want to create a company. I had some trouble with hackers. I know the problem. I know the pain. I know the developers market. Let's do it together. And that's how we started Escape.
I need to add some precision here. I was not the person who hacked Tristan.
Yeah, that he knows of. So just keep it quiet for now. Anyway, but
absolutely.
Okay, so instead of becoming like hacker, like starting a YouTube channel, taking down hackers, you thought technology can save developers from getting hacked.
Yeah, I think both of us are big fans of deep technologies.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to bring technology into the developer space and the cybersecurity space in order to solve that kind of problems in a very fascinating and interesting way.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty hard. So that must have been like a difficult part of it. Like if it's something that's really difficult, how did you get started?
That is super interesting. So first, we were both doing deep tech before. So I was actually working in a company. It was named Sourced, and it was dedicated to source code analysis using machine learning. So using IA to analyze source code and find vulnerabilities inside of it. So I was already kind of working in deep tech with security. And Antoine as well was already working in automated penetration testing. And we started by doing a state of the art of what existed for automated security testing. And we found a paper from Microsoft Research, which is called Wrestler. And basically, it was the basic automated security testing for applications, but it was very theoretical and difficult to apply to developers because it took 24 hours of computation time to give the result. So we said, okay, we can do better than that. We can create a new technology that will do better than that. But we knew it was possible in a large amount of time. We just had to do better and in a shorter time span in order to be integrated in the development process.
So you found, something that actually could do the job, but it was way too slow to be usable.
Absolutely. And I think the challenge too was a real product challenge because actually developers, they are not used to cybersecurity. All right. So we had to build a cybersecurity product that was compatible with the developer mindset, but also the way they're working. Which means we had to have a product that is appealing, that goes fast, that runs in CI/CD, and that is really able to bring value to the developer, which means we really help them to remediate, to understand why there are security concerns, why the security is important, and to remediate the different issues. So as Tristan mentioned, it was a huge technical challenge, which was in fact first of all, a product challenge, and we solved the product challenge with this technique from a research paper by Microsoft originally.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point about like developers. And as for me, it's always like you're just doing tickets, right? And like you're creating features or fixing bugs, and it's rare that someone in the team is gonna kind of allow you or like encourage you to just spend time making your project more secure.
Two things about that. So the first thing is you're right. Like developers, their job primarily is to ship features and not to do security. So there is a trend. It's called the DevSecOps, where the developers have more responsibility for creating secure applications. But they don't want to spend a large amount of time doing this because they have other priorities. And so the challenge when you're building a product in DevSecOps space, and Snyk, they understood that well, you want to be super seamless in the way you integrate within the dev process. You want to be to have a very good developer experience. You want to be fun and easy to use, so the developer actually use you instead of just skipping this step. And especially when you are doing a deep tech company like Escape, you have to take a technology that is extremely complex, that is slow, that is prone to crash, and you must transform it into a product that is developer friendly, easy to use, and that is seamless in its integration. And there is a lot of work for doing that. So taking a research and putting it into production with a good developer experience, that was a huge challenge.
Yeah. And then once you get that kind of like seamless developer experience, I'm guessing it's just, you set it up and it runs in the background, tells you when things are going wrong, right? But how, like for developers, unless like they had an experience like Tristan and they feel very passionate about it, or they're in a space that requires a lot of security, how do you get them to like care about this? Because it's always like everyone would say it's important, but it feels like one of those things that's like, yeah, it's really important, I'll do it next week. How do you kind of like...
Yeah, so there are two things. First, you need to create interest. Developers are curious persons. They are curious. They want to learn more about their applications. They want to, they're interested. So when they can use Escape very quickly, we'll come back to that later, but time to value was very important to us. And you can set up Escape very quickly, and it will make you learn things about the code that you're actually writing. Like, hey, you forgot this here. Perhaps you can change that. And this creates interest. That is the first thing. And the second thing, we have added a few more metrics that the developer care about, which is like, for instance, the performance metrics. And so they can see it, at each commit, they have an automated benchmark of how their application reacts from a performance point of view. And this is the kind of stuff that they like and that they like to see at every commit.
Oh yeah, that's cool. So you're giving them some extra incentives.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There is kind of gamification, I would say, learning and gamification.
But the main point is developers, they like to write code, but they don't like to write tests. And what Escape does is writing the security test automatically for them. So the hassle that we are removing from them is a huge one.
That makes sense. So then it's like save time essentially, or do something you don't want to do.
Yeah, there is this, and there is also like, about partnering with a company that have expertise in security for developers. So there is kind of a teaching part where the developers, we are advocating the best practices. We show why is this a problem, how it can be solved. So in a way, it's also, making the development team to be more aware of the security consequences at the same time.
And in addition, we constantly keep up to date with the latest cybersecurity news, which means when a company comes and see us, we ensure that their applications are tested against the latest vulnerabilities that come out in the space.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's a really cool thing that you're doing, because it's I know, like, I'm pretty sure like a lot of the apps I've built have like there's very rarely time to like really think about like security.
Yeah.
So how could you tell us about like how you got like your first few customers here?
So this is, first of all, this is a hard part in any startup, not especially Dev2 startup, but any startup. So first we were insanely focused on lowering the time to value. So it was very important to us to have a super seamless onboarding and to have immediately the results that you could see and that you could play with the tool, and to make it interesting and for the user to have a good experience with the tool. So this was very hard, but we managed to have a very good, setup of the tool, very seamless. And so the first long-term users, we got them because they were curious. Like we published on the social networks, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. We created a Hacker News post. A few people signed up, and they tried the tool, and Escape uncovered vulnerabilities that were critical in their applications. And so they had a low time to value. They learned interesting stuff, and then they became long-term users. That's how we got the first users.
Yeah, that's a very interesting approach. Is like just get like lots of people kind of interested, and then just hit them with like a really really interesting thing.
Yeah, I mean, for like when we created Escape, it was really a goal for us to create product-led growth. And we created the product with this in mind. And so lowering the time to value and having good quality of result to create like, a haha moment when arriving in front of the result was something very important to us. And we can see that it worked. There were other challenges from a product point of view, but this part was really our focus at the beginning, and it was great. It was very tough from a tech point of view, because as always, when you're building deep tech with a lot of code, algorithms, the first time a user signs up, it crashes. The second time it crashes. The third time it crashes. But crash after crash, you improve your code base. And at some point it becomes stable, and people are actually able to sign up and do the full process without talking to you. And then they get very good result, and they start being real users.
Yeah, that's the magic of the product.
Yeah. And it, like, actually just digging in there, like if I see like, oh, wow, there's this big vulnerability.
Yeah.
Do people tend to then stick around? Is it still like, then you need to help them to actually change it to make sure that they stick around? Or
Yeah, there are two things here. It depends on the company. Some companies, if you are a 10 people startup and you don't have a business model yet, you will not care about security, because first you need to create a business before protecting it. And that is the right way of doing things, right? But if you speak about a 500 people scale up, like big startup, tech company, then if you find a critical vulnerability inside of this, they have to react. They have SLA, they have contracts with their customers that enforce that they have proper scanning, proper management of the vulnerabilities. So they have to do it, and they care about it because it's important to their business. Their data being stolen can, get them out of business. So it's critical.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And actually, like, two questions from that. So one is the 500 people startup, like, of 500 people company. One is, would they just like try it out, like, from interest? And then the second thing is, like, who pays for this, essentially?
Yeah. That's a great question. So they try from just interest. That's the magic, because like the difference. So when you're doing a product-led growth, you need to, there is a setup, and you need to do get your security data from somewhere. The special thing with Escape is we are scanning from an exterior point of view. We can do within the CI/CD, or we can do full SaaS on development environment or even a production environment. And so that allows a single developer to actually try Escape without telling the management, without telling anyone. Just you go on the platform, you log in, and you try it on your application. Amazing. So there is like a huge bottom-up motion that allows us to get big corporations to try Escape just because a single developer went for it and just was curious about the results. So that is the first thing. And then about who pays, it really depends. It can be the engineering team, it can be the cloud team, it can be the security. It really depends on the structure of the company that you're working with.
And do they typically know what to do once they find this vulnerability to get it, like, to continue to use Escape, or to, like, do they then normally go pitch it?
So mostly when they find a vulnerability, they put someone in the management in the loop, someone like a director of product or platform or something, or security. We discuss all together, and they're like, we should avoid this from reproducing in the future. And then they integrate Escape directly in the development process, so it never happens again.
Okay. And is that, because that sounds very easy, but have there been any challenges in that?
I think like one of the big challenges was, as I said, was stability. Because when you're integrated in the development process, you can't make the deployment of your customers to fail, right? If you block the deployment, they're not going to like it. So you have to be super stable in order not to be the bottleneck of their engineering process. And that takes time. And then, of course, you have to learn to speak to multiple people. Like, you have to learn to speak to developers, to speak to security, to speak to the DevOps teams. So there are multiple people involved in this process of cloud security, like DevSecOps, and you have to learn to speak with everyone.
Yeah, and I think one of the difficulty here is that there are some features on the products that are really liked by developers, but they are in the way they are currently presented, they are not perfectly suited to the security guys. And on the other side, there are some features for the security guys that could bring value to the developers if they were presented in another manner. So you have to have ways to create features and to present the information to the user in different ways depending on the persona you have. And so that's quite a big challenge from a product point of view again. And in addition, you have to integrate with different tools, and the developer tools the tools for developers or the tools that the developer love, they are different from the security tools. So you have to create different kind of integrations or different personas. That's quite challenging.
Yeah. Have you got any tips for anyone that's like kind of at that edge of security and dev?
I think you have one tip, Tristan. Like I think like the developers, they are they focus on projects. I will say. I mean, they're working on a specific project, so they want to see the vulnerabilities or the issues of a specific projects. While the security people, they want a more global vision of all the projects and all the vulnerabilities of the organizations. That's these different the two different point of views, which makes building the product challenging but fascinating too.
Yeah, like developers have a vertical view, and security has an horizontal view of what happens.
Yes.
Yeah, and are you trying to make it like, is it like customized, or is it just you're trying to make it appeal to both people?
We were trying to make people to make both teams speak with each other. Actually, like we're trying to create like the place where they can actually exchange on a common ground about the security. So for the security to see all different applications from all developers team and know what are the best practices applied to each team, and for a security, like for the developer team to know precisely the application that they're developing, what are the main threats, what are the main vulnerabilities, and what they should do. Like a roadmap in a way for improving the security.
Yeah, it sounds really hard. It's like really, you're like you have to figure out like go to market on both sides. And
dev tools are hard in any case.
Yeah. Is it like ever hard where there's like kind of internal politics or something between within the company?
I think the market is evolving. I think originally the dev team and the security team are very siloed one with another, and I think the evolution, the way the market is going to, is more security team integrated within the development team. This is also another part of the DevSecOps, but now you have application security engineers. They understand the code base and they are very close to the developers, yet they are security people, so they are bridging the gap. And those guys are very good champions for Escape because they understand the development part, they understand the security part, and they want to have the tool for them. So they really like Escape, and they're a huge advocate for it.
Yeah, they're like the human versions of Escape. And
yeah, but we had to find the right persona, and it's not something easy. Like finding exactly the right persona. Not all developers are equal. They have different priorities, different topics, and we had to find the right person.
How do you do that?
I think it's related to the way we got our users. So basically, like a lot of developer tools, we have a huge inbound strategy. Content, we created content. So we have a blog where we publish about GraphQL, about security, about API security, different kind of developer stuff as well. It's very technical, and it brings people to know about Escape, and it brought us most of our users at the beginning. And then we started doing also engineering as marketing. And this has worked very well for us. So we create side projects, free website where you can, quickly test the security of your application with 10 best practices. It's called GraphQL.security and OpenAPI.security. So you can try it out. It's very easy. And this brings a lot of traffic as well, of people that are interested and curious. So those were the two things that I think brought the early users. And then also open source and speaking to conferences are the way to meet the community, to discuss with them and to understand. And all that put together, you start having a vision of who does what in companies, and you can understand who will be your user at the end.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you're just like spreading the word, like reaching a lot of people, and then some of the people that come to you will be the right people, and you're starting to learn who to really spend spend a lot of effort like helping and
Yeah, I think like it's linked to I don't know if you've seen this article like how to create luck, but the theory about the main
Swix.
theory, the main theory about this article is you have to do a lot of things interesting and tell a lot about it, tell about it to a maximum of person, and that's what we did. We created a lot of side projects. We talked to community about it. So this interaction with the community and this engineering capacity internally was what created the Escape brand.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I've read, I don't know if it's the same one. I read one by Swix,
Yes, this is this one. Yeah.
It's a really good one. I just wanted to ask you two really quick questions that I think are quite unconventional in your onboarding. So I was trying out Escape.tech. I haven't got a GraphQL endpoint, so although I know you're doing REST as well now.
Yeah.
But when I signed up, I tried to sign up my Gmail account and it said I can't sign up with my Gmail account. I have to use a business account. And then secondly, I got an email immediately inviting me to Slack. So both of those I think are quite unconventional. And I wondered if you could talk about why you did that.
Yeah, of course. So the first thing, Escape is a dev tool, but it's also a cybersecurity tool. And it can be used for offensive purposes. And especially it could be used for doing bad things that you're not authorized to. And so to limit the risk of people abusing Escape and using it for, real offensive task, we limit it to business accounts and not the Gmail personal accounts. That could be anyone.
The goal is to identify the people.
Yeah, that's the goal. And for the Slack, so we are strong believers in interaction with the users. We believe to make a great product, you must interact with people. It's not just through the product; it's through directly talking to them. And so that's why we decided we noticed actually that as soon as we had a Slack channel with people, the usage of the product grew by a lot. So that was quite interesting. It was very, very different from people we don't have channel with and people that had support channel. So we decided to create one for every single user on the product. And it has worked well so far.
That's really cool. Is that like out the box or did you build it yourself?
Now we build it ourselves. Yeah.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So reach out to Tristan and Antoine if you want to build that. That's awesome.
We've been asked a lot of questions about this feature of inviting people on Slack automatically.
Yeah.
A lot of people are wondering what we do here.
Engineering as marketing. Yeah. Really cool. Okay, I think that's all the questions I had. Is there anything you guys wanted to talk about before we finish?
Yeah, I think I have two interesting learnings that I would like to share with the community of DevTool founders. The first one would be invest in content from day one. This has really been a game changer for Escape, creating good quality content, having regular readers. Like sometimes I talk to people, users, and they're like, hey, I read your newsletter every time. I love it. Like your articles are very cool. And I think it has been responsible for a lot of new users, a lot of new business opportunities for Escape, and also from, having great interactions with the community. So that would be my first advice. And the second advice is when we think about dev tools, we think about open source a lot because product-led growth, open source. I think it's interesting and I love open source. We have a lot of open source projects at Escape. I also think this is not the only way of creating a good dev tool. If you take Snowflake, for instance, as an example, it's a great dev tool. It's absolutely not open source. And if you take Snyk as well, it's not open source. So basically, there are other ways of creating a dev tool that would not be open source. And one of them is integrating directly within the tools they already use. So for instance, GitHub or GitLab or this kind of tool. So yeah, open source open core is not the only way to creating great dev tools. But you need to also keep in mind that the community to give back to the community. So contributing to open source, I think, when you're doing a dev tool is a great thing, and every company should do it.
Yeah, really good points. Yeah, there's I guess so many examples of really successful companies that aren't like open core. Yeah, really good point. Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming and speaking to us. So yeah, if anyone's listening, they want to learn more about escape.tech, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're launching your REST API, or it's already out now, security as well?
It's in beta now, and it will be out in September.
Okay, amazing. And I saw you had a video with Jamie, who's been on the podcast as well.
Yeah.
Trying out. So yeah, Jamie Barton, shout out Jamie Barton. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for joining. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, Jack, for having us.
Thank you very much.